What day is it? Say 18.
18.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. Welcome back, everybody.
That was good.
That was good. We should do that.
Good morning, everybody.
Welcome back, friends, to day 18 of 42 Days of Magical Practice. I am Dustin Neese.
You can't possibly be. Oh, God. All right. Let's do that again.
Yeah, that's good. All right. All right. Welcome back to the 42 Days of Magical Practice. This is day 18. And we're taking a deeper dive into the art of placement.
Right.
And how we can restructure and reorganize our homes and our environments to put us in that state of already feeling like we have the thing that we want.
Right.
Organizing our minds around the end result that we're going for.
Right. I mean, each step is like designed to sort of, we can blow up each step as a single practice, or in this case, we're using all of these sort of a broader aspect of these things to sort of see how it influences us through the course of these 42 days, and how layering them one after the other will sort of give us a broader influence throughout our day, and start to augment the way that we see the world, and augment the way that we're experiencing the world as well. So
it's kind of like instead of getting myopically focused on like one technique to produce the result, it's like we're touching on all these different areas to produce kind of an overall shift in internal process. And
right. And even though we're doing it in 42 days, or we're producing it in 42 days, it doesn't mean that people have to do each step in 42 days,
right,
in one day. So, the idea is that, again, we do each one of these things, but we may take some time to sort of, figure it out, get a better understanding of it, and, really unify the principle that's behind it in my mind, what I have known in the past, and what I'm trying to adjust and coming, and then to put that into practice. Again, the doing of each of these steps is really important, because it seems to be where most people fall down in any practice, right? So it's like, it doesn't matter what it is, it's they intellectually understand it, they have a desire to do it, but then when it comes to actually physically doing it, it's lost in translation, or it's like tomorrow's a better day to start.
why do you think that is?
I think it's a lot of things. I think people generally are overwhelmed in this life at this point, and they've got a lot of stuff that they could pare away from their life to reduce the stress load on their life, and keeping the essentials there, and they would have more time to think, to relax, to ponder, to reflect on what it is that they do, so they wouldn't feel like, how am I going to do one more thing? They've already got so much to do. And so, in the beginning, it is like that. So, you're going to pull something out that's not necessary to put something in that you want, and to see if that has a better effect. Know that wherever you are right now, that is a complete reflection of your inner state to begin with. So, whatever practices you're doing, whether it be watching 5 hours of sitcoms, or, 3 hours of news, and, not eating well, or at the right times, or not getting enough sleep, or any of these other things, that's producing what you have right now. And so if I want to produce something different, I have to change the recipe, right? So I can't just keep throwing the same stuff in the pot and expecting to come out with some different meal. It's going to always produce the same meal. So I pull something out, put something else in, it gives it a different flavor. Now I have something different. If I want to change, what that analogy is just good for this, because it's, it gets boring after a while. You can, I mean, I've met plenty of people that are bored at a, higher financial status or whatever. They're just as bored, if not even more so, than people that probably don't have as much, wealth. But, they're sorely lacking in good relationships, or relationships that they want, let's put it that way, and friendships and things of that nature, as well as other things. They may have very poor health because of the stress levels and probably a multitude of other things. So wealth isn't the only factor that causes a good life. So I think, again, that using sort of multiple techniques on a more superficial level, let's say, will still show you adequate results to want to dive in deeper to those areas that really produce the most effect for you in this. If you can spare 42 days to, we're not asking for 42 years, 42 days to effect some change, to prove to yourself that you can affect some change in your life. That's not so much to ask. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the Feng Shui and bringing in symbols, and a little bit more about placing them, and what are the principles behind that. We know that the general thought process is, how does that, the placement of this object or this symbol or that symbol make me feel, as being the major foundation. But what are some other things that you think about when you're organizing your space for around something specifically that you're trying to?
Yeah, and again, I think I start with and always come back to, what is the end result I'm trying to achieve? That has to be first and last in your thought process. Is it, what is that end result? Am I trying to achieve more success in my life, financially or whatever way? And if so, what are the things that I have right here, right now, that could represent that? What does that look like? And knowing that, everything that we have is sort of a symbol for something else. There's a symbolic sort of equivalent to the things that we have here. So for most people, a $100 bill, sort of represents financial wealth. And it's just sort of a marker. We use it in advertising all the time. We use it in all of these things, right? People, to represent wealth, financial wealth, it's, a $100 bill is sort of like that iconic symbol of financial wealth and prosperity. So, that may be the case. And if you're fortunate enough to have that, or you can, change a bunch of change into that and use it as a symbolic representation of wealth, then that may be a good thing. If that works for you. If it doesn't, or you don't have that right there with you, then that's fine. You make a note to mentally do that at some point and see how that changes, the environment for you. Does it just become sort of background noise, or does it really have an effect on me over a course of time? Am I constantly thinking, it's like I really could use that $100 to buy something else, so, or, does it just remind me that, there's, more of that coming in my life, or there's more of that I feel as though this is going to have a positive impact. I feel better just looking at that, and sort of have sort of an uplifted feeling of financial wealth when I see that. And know that it's working on you subconsciously as well. It's not something that you have to force the issue. If that's not doing it for you, then, something else. I've seen people do this with a quarter, because in their childhood that represented, something that was just given to them, by a parent or whatever. Here's a quarter, go get some candy, or whatever it is, so that quarter always represented to them freely given wealth. There was just no strings attached. It was just.
Are there any universals like that hold true? I guess it's kind of like, I'm thinking of the example that's in my head is like, okay, I'm trying to bring a new relationship into my life. and I happen to have this image of a woman, and I want to put it on the wall because it reminds me of these qualities of the person that I might want to attract, or whatever.
Right.
But in the photograph, like, she's turned away, or something like that. So, someone could argue, well, in the photograph, the girl's looking away, or she's walking away. So that means like she's like not coming toward you, so she's leaving, So symbolically, that definitely represents this. And then, but what if, for me, it brings up that feeling of having that person. So, what do I give more importance to? The general rules that I might read about in a book, or kind of trusting myself in how I respond to that symbol?
I think trusting yourself is a much better overall gauge. I mean, there are certain things that, because they've been used consistently, symbols that have been used consistently over, millennia, that will sort of, they hold a certain momentum already.
What kinds of things?
Things like certain religious symbols, like equilateral cross, or just general geometric shapes. A lot of people use the spirals that they see in all of these caves and in shamanic paintings and things like that. And what does it actually represent to each person? Maybe slightly different, but they do sort of carry a momentum with them. And again, geometric shapes are one of those things, but also things.
Could you give us some examples that people could utilize consciously?
Sure. I mean, circles obviously are one of those things that, whether it's a circle or three-dimensionally, it'd be a sphere, right? So circles have always been, within an energetic structure, either to contain a certain idea or principle, or to remove anything from the outside, coming. Nothing can encroach on a circle. So, it's sort of like being at the center of that, and basically keeping whatever the edge of that circle is completely your environment. It's keeping your developed environment, whatever you've contained in your mind, you're building that out. You're the center of that universe. And so everything else that's outside of that is just sort of held at bay. It's sort of a place of, it's kind of like, in a way, I'm going to date myself now, like the holodeck on the Star Trek series or whatever. You walk in there and it's sort of like, now they have the, what is it, the virtual reality glasses, for, it's sort of building out an environment in that way that seems so real to you that it's, that it's very contained. And, circle sort of represents that you're building out that environment, and you're at the center of that, you're creating that, and that everything else is sort of kept outside of that, by the circle itself. Has no beginning and no end, so there's that, idea of eternity there, that it's produced and made and taken apart at your will. So squares usually represent, something are solid and fixed. Again, sort of an earth element there, right? So it's solid and fixed. So that, we produce, slabs of stone or wood, to produce altars, right? So what's, fixed and solid and brought down to this earth or on this material plane. So, I mean, it goes on and on, all of these basic, geometric forms, again, either in its two-dimensional state or three-dimensional state. And they all sort of have momentum of many people using them in the same way, more or less, over time. So they sort of carry that energetic resonance with them. And when you utilize them, it's you're using that momentum as well. You're sort of tagging your own momentum along with it, and so it carries a little bit more of a punch than a picture that's just a single picture that somebody drew and had a certain idea in their mind when they drew it or painted it, and then you're utilizing it, and everybody can make a different interpretation about the picture. I mean, people do that in museums all the time, right? How does this picture strike you? It's like you can hear You know,
Right.
100 people will have 100 different ideas of what the picture represents to them, right? So in that case, I would say I would go with my own, you know, gut. How does it feel to you? If it's a good reference for you, then, and that's all you've ever done, and you know, you don't have any references from other books or anything like that to give you that, you know, an opposite idea, or that's, you know, sort of plaguing you in that way, that it may be not correct, whatever your idea is, then I would just go with my own interpretation of what it is that I put up. Again, it's got to make you feel better, not, or in the way that you want to feel in that situation. It doesn't have anything to do with a right or wrong for anybody else. It's just about you. So, you know, that's why I think, you know, it's much more beneficial for you to go by how you feel about whatever symbol you put in there than some kind of stock answer from some tradition that you don't belong to. You know, it doesn't really, you know, I mean, if it's a, let's say, and a picture of a person like that, that's sort of a complex symbol too. So, you know, there's lots of room for interpretation. I mean, you know, if I were taking a picture like we discussed before, like if I were in, for myself anyway, like I wouldn't personally put a picture, you know, in an area that was supposed to be growth of something that was dying or dead or on its way to that state, you know, no matter how beautiful the picture was or whatever.
I think the example that you're giving,
the landscape, like an Arctic or a, you know, frozen type of landscape with trees that are devoid of leaves and, you know, just sort of barren, right? If I'm trying to produce something that's overwhelming, you know, and life and promoting and creating, I'm not looking at a landscape that's devoid of that life or seemingly devoid of that life, or the life is in stasis at that point, at best, you know, or dead flowers or whatever, you know, no matter how beautiful they are, you know, it's the whole idea is that it's, you know, they're just something that's sort of fixed in time. I don't want to represent that in a place where I want growth. I want to represent it with something that's growing and moving and you know, blossoming and flourishing, you know, pick your adjective and put it in there. So, yeah, so I mean, I think in those general ideas, but as far as specifics, I mean, you know, each person's interpretation is as good as the next.
How is there any way in which this is different than just like making your house a vision board? I mean, because it kind of sounds like that, right? You're like, oh, well, this room, I want to bring in like pictures of this, or bring in $100 bill to represent money because I want more money and
except
success.
A vision board is usually something that's two-dimensional. It's a flat plane, it's pictures, right. It's this and that, right? Or it's things written out, or all of those things that are sort of, you're never entering into that place, right? Yeah,
because I just think that
this is something that you're building out three-dimensionally and you're moving through during different times of the day, right? So, or, you know, at a certain time every day when you come home, right? So you're sort of in there, you're feeding it your energy of whatever it is that it represents to you. And sort of making it that place where you feel that way.
Yeah. And do you think that basically it's just that our environments have a bigger impact on us without us thinking about it or having to do anything? So yeah, it's like it's already impacting you.
Yeah, it has to. It's not that, you know, the pictures aren't energy as well. They are, but there does seem to be that bit of separation there, that it's a picture. It's not in my physical three-dimensional presence right now, and it's not having the same impact on me as something that is right here, right now, that I have to move around, or I can be close to and enjoy that, whatever that is. You know, so I think that sort of proximity interaction is a big deal, and you feel like you're living within it. You know, in that that spectrum of different energies sort of interplaying on each other and on you, and you on them, right? It's like you're doing things in there. It's not like, You're looking from a window outside into that space. You're living in that space. You're actually doing things there, which is important. Once you have it set up, it's not like a museum piece where you put, velvet ropes around it and nobody gets to go in there. We talked about that with the family and the kids and all of that stuff, right? It's like, no, you want to be in there. You want it to be practical, where you can utilize it. You want to live in it and give it a charge every day. It's like,
I think that's
important.
That seems to be a key word, practical. Yeah. Well, what in your mind would differentiate between like some kind of symbolic Feng Shui symbol or reorganization or whatever as being like practical and not practical?
Well, I think it's relevant, right? It's practical if you've grown up in that culture. And hanging a flute from the ceiling would represent moving the chi in a pleasant way. The winds representing mentality, are sort of moving through it, and it's becoming this pleasant sound, right? So but for most people, that's not what they're thinking. For most, let's say for people not raised in that culture, they're not going to understand what it is. They're just putting it there saying, oh, they told me to put a flute in the corner of the ceiling.
Right.
Yeah, it's nice, but I mean, what the hell, right? It's like you look at it, it's vacancy, right? There's nothing, there's no coordination, there's no understanding of what it's doing there. So, except for what you read in the book, which isn't, and the book's not answering your questions. If you had, if you were being taught that, and you could go to your teacher and you could say, what is this? What does it represent actually? What is it doing? And then come up with these scenarios and go back and forth, and then until you could make it practical in your head, and then it had that significance for you and nothing else, then it would make sense to utilize it, right? But so I think that practicality, again, we utilize the symbols that we've grown up with, that we've been trained to as being a certain thing for us without thinking about it. Again, like, a barren picture or whatever, or, it's like on the opposite side of that, right? The guy that, he sort of loved his stuff so much and his accomplishments. He put all his achievement awards like everywhere in the house, including like in the bathroom on the opposite wall of, where the throne was, basically. So, and so he just loved looking at this stuff and, like reminiscing about those
diplomas.
Yeah, diplomas, all that kind of stuff, achievement awards, all of that. And, and he was constantly like, doing that, and then, getting rid of the waste, and basically that idea of flushing away, your achievements, and then seeing that, as things went on, I mean, his achievements went down, 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 until finally, somebody had to step in and help him out, or he, called out for help, and that was the first thing that was very apparent, from that standpoint, from the Feng Shui standpoint, that it was, you don't want to do that. You want to put them where it's growth and not where it's getting rid of things that don't matter, or things that are waste, oriented refuse. So, so it's just those basic ideas on the plus and minus side of it. But I think, again, it's that, you're living within that structure, and those symbols are affecting you, and you're affecting them. You're charging them up by being in that place and doing things that you would do if everything was as you want it to be. Doing it ahead of time and feeling that way. So I think that's important. But know that everything you put in there has a symbolic representation, more than the actual value of what the thing is. So ideally, somebody could, if they had a great understanding of those symbols and they always worked for them, they could draw them out and put them in those places instead of using things to represent that. And if that worked for them, if that was a strong association for them, it would work just fine. Draw circles, draw squares, draw triangles, whatever those affiliations, with the different elements or what they represent, put them in those areas and see how it feels, and then see what the end result is, and then adjust it as you go along. If it's not quite what you want, you move them around a little bit. But that they're having that change. They're having that effect in your life somehow. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. I mean, again, the story for for this aspect is what is the doing, and how do I represent in a way that's practical, the thing already being achieved, whatever the end result is that you want in whatever area of your life. So, and I think, again, using those symbols is a way to sort of, whatever things that you put in there. And again, I would caution on sort of a minimalistic approach, just those things that make you feel like you've already achieved that end result that you're looking for. How does that, does each of those symbols sort of relay one of those aspects of that already being complete? That's how I would do it. So, yeah,
All right.
that's pretty much it.
Cool.
There's a lot more there, but it's, again,
Yeah.
we'll be chasing down
All
the
these
rabbit
things
hole.
like floating in my mind, like, like, yeah, should I ask him that? And then it's like, yeah, but I don't want to tap the well. We'll be here for 3 hours.
We'll be here. And it's like, I couldn't do what you wanted me to do because I was too busy listening to you ramble on about this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it's,
So do it.
just do it. And,
Yeah.
and
Start running some experiments.
start running some experiment and have that attitude, that it's a joyous effort. It's not some drudgery that if it's drudgery already, forget it. It's not for you. It's too much. It's like, it's got to be something that you can joyfully go after all the time.
Yeah, but I think it's tough too, because a lot of times when you're going after changing something in your life, it may be an aspect that, causes you frustration or some kind of, you obviously feel discontented in that area. So your actions are, to try and change it, to try and get it to be different. So,
Right. But I mean, the whole thing is like, just to bounce off of that, it's like, maybe cleaning your house has been, you've represented that to yourself as drudgery all these years, instead of looking at it as constantly, beyond the cleanliness aspect of just good health, right? It's basically having a clean slate all the time in that area that's represented in your house, in your home. So, I mean, that's a good thing. That's not drudgery anymore. That's doing it with a specific purpose in mind. When it's already sort of entrained to that way, it's going to have a different effect. Represented in the right way, represented in the way that it should be, that it's part of your life and it's part of your environment. And by changing it and keeping it pristine, it's going to have that effect in other areas of your life as well. When you put the energy and time into it, it's going to have that effect. And you'll see it. That's the thing. It's not something that you're going to have to guess at. You're going to see it. It's going to be represented to you in a way that's very clear. Yeah. It's not going to be something you're going to have to ponder. And if not, you're going to switch it up. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, you just have to do it. You have to do it, and try it, and go after it with just, again, that joyful effort. It's an experiment. It's like, I don't know many people that do experiments and without it being, sort of a fun-loving attitude toward doing it. It's like anything you're doing begrudgingly is probably not good for you. Or you don't have the right attitude about it. You don't, and the right attitude would just mean that you're not representing it in the right. You're not understanding why it's important. So that understanding will give you a better sense of why you're doing it and how well you should be doing it. So, same with this. There's no difference. Go after it with with a spring in your step, and you'll get better results out of it, even if it's cleaning the floors.
Yeah.
It'll be better, I guarantee it.
Cool.
All right.
All right. Thanks, guys. we'll see you tomorrow.
Catch
Have
you on the
fun with
flip-flop.
it. Yeah.
All right.